There's still many unanswered questions about who Mohamed Boulel was and what were his connections to jihadist networks and what were his motivations in particular. And right now, the investigation hasn't thrown up any formal elements about that. The Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve is saying this is a totally new case because he hadn't shown up on the security radar of the French intelligence service, and we haven't found evidence of radicalization so far. So in that respect, it's entirely new. Were you surprised when you started finding out about who this Mohamed Boulel is?
I might have been surprised by the fastness of his radicalization. But to put in new information, his uncle, regarding to AP, just said that he was indoctrinated by an Algerian ISIS member. So
an Algerian member of the Islamic State group.
Exactly. So
any word on the time frame, whether this happened recently? Or?
He said 2 weeks before the happening, he knew he had this information. But we don't know yet if it's confirmed or not. It's an information from our colleagues at AP.
The Associated Press.
Yes.
The uncle who's saying this lives in France?
I don't know. They didn't,
don't know that.
They didn't say. They didn't say. But he said that the ISIS member is in France. So it should be looked at, I guess, in the upcoming hours. But to go back to your question, maybe he radicalized fast, but up to this point, no one is in his head, if I may say so. He might have been attracted by this ideology a long while ago without showing it. Mm-hmm. We are always seeking signs like a beard or like an Afghani clothes or like someone totally lunatic crying or yelling Allahu Akbar in the streets.
Outward signs of radicalization.
Exactly, but it's not always the case. We should see that there is no real profile today for a jihadi person to join or not. Remember, we're always focusing on France and the West as a whole. But remember Bangladesh a few weeks ago, the 4 attackers in the name of the Islamic State were university students from the upper class in the society. So this, I guess, should be looked at in a new way. And one thing which is very important when you know jihadi literature and what they are preaching since decades, they say if a person is a former
former sinner,
yes, a former sinner or even a former criminal, if he denies all this, if he chooses to go on the path of jihad, all his sins will be forgiven, and he will be even able to intercede for 70 people from his entourage to be welcome in heaven. So this is to be taken into consideration.
So you can redeem yourself.
Exactly, redeem yourself. And this is why many people who had a life of criminality or other joined the jihadi ranks. Even Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi, one of the founders of the Islamic State in Iraq, the head of the Al-Qaeda in Iraq, was a former criminal. So this is not new in jihadi literature, and it is not new when people are fighting, if I may say so, in the name of a religion and for political reasons. It was also the case in Christianity during the Crusades many centuries ago, but we know that many people joined the Crusaders in order to redeem themselves. So it's not a new phenomena for the human race, but today here in Europe we are facing it for the first time by Europeans, or at least European residents who are attracted by this ideology.
One of the central questions that remains is the exact nature of the links, and if there were any, between the attacker and the Islamic State group, or any kind of organized jihad. For the moment, the investigation hasn't thrown up any formal links.
Yes,
but you're saying there have to be some.
It is true, but I guess that for the Islamic State to claim responsibility this way, naming him as an Islamic State soldier, they had to validate the person before. Because if we have many examples, for example, the attackers in Texas who attacked caricaturists were claimed as Islamic State soldiers, even though they failed. The Orlando attacker too. And in between, we had the attack in San Bernardino, and they didn't say they were soldiers of the Islamic State, they said they were supporters of the Islamic State. And it was the same way for Australia. So I guess that the links should be also looked at in a new way. We shouldn't imagine that they are physical links. It could be through internet, it could be through a person in the ranks of the Islamic State, either in Tunisia, in Libya. It's not it might not have been in Syria and Iraq, but for them to claim this way, he was validated before, and I guess that the investigation will tell us what happened and what is the nature of this link, even if it's a virtual link. But we know from his entourage that he was watching
emails,
yes,
etc.
that he was watching Islamic State videos lately, that he was speaking about the Islamic State lately, and we know this. We have this also information from his uncle saying that he was indoctrinated by a Nigerian member of the Islamic State. So I said that links will be made, but we shouldn't imagine that we are speaking about physical links.
All right, Wasim Nasr, our jihadist expert here at France 24. Thank you very much.